ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Claddercast, episode 119. I'm Steve Tudor.
Hi, I'm Andy Lewis.
And I'm Rory Summers.
And we are missing a Sid this week. He's currently off with work trips. I think he's in Paris. The last message I heard of him was at about 7 o'clock yesterday morning when he informed me he was having a Wagamama's for breakfast.
Lad, now that's the way I have a breakfast. Jesus, that's how I start strong.
Oh yeah, some dumplings as a breakfast starter. I'll have that. I'll have that any day of the week.
Oh, I've had me dinner tonight. I could eat that right now. Wello.
I don't think I could have a full katsu curry though for my breakfast. That seems a bit much.
I would.
That'll start your day, wouldn't it? Jesus. Good God. Well, fair dues. Sid's doing it right. What did I have for my breakfast today? I had toast and jam. Very exciting.
I'd scrambled egg on toast.
Yeah, same here.
Very nice. Very lovely.
Which, actually, I might have to go buy some dumplings just so I can have dumplings for breakfast tomorrow now.
Oh, Sid's going to be annoyed that I'm mentioning this when he's not here. The Itsu frozen ones. They do frozen dumplings and they do frozen bao buns. And the bao buns don't go in the microwave. They've even got little bags you can put them in them.
All right.
They're really good. I mean, the amount of time Sid suddenly, he scurried off in the middle of one of these video RPG sessions. I think he's even done it on a podcast record, and he's come back chowing down on some char siu pork dumpling that he's just microwaved quickly.
Bastard.
Legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does that. It's not fair. There should be some kind of punishment for doing such things on camera.
So Sid's not here. I almost forgot when I was meant to introduce myself during the intro there.
I didn't want to say anything, mate.
So I was like, oh, is it me now? Is it me?
There was this kind of uncomfortable pause, long enough for me to start thinking, he's forgotten, but not quite long enough to make you look daft.
I'm never third. I'm never third in the intro, or haven't been for a long time anyway.
The problem is now I can't edit that out. I've got to try and remember not to edit out that pause. Because usually I do.
Yeah, you see. This is another subtle game I play, is making Steve's life hard.
Like it.
Don't reference earlier stuff so I can do the edit, Andy. Andy references earlier stuff. Bastard!
Let's do it. Let's see how many early references we can get in today.
John was a complete bugger for that. I decide to cut 5 minutes of podcast sometimes, and then half an hour later, John references something from those 5 minutes. I'm like,
Well, you've only got to edit 3 feeds this week, haven't you, Steve?
It's true.
So to compensate for the easiness, we're going to make it more difficult for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Swear lots. So you have to do loads of sound effects.
It is easy when it's just two people. We do occasionally one, so it's just me and Andy, and they have always been a lot easier to edit. just
press play and just listen to the waffle. 15 minutes of Dunelm. I'll be fine. Well, you see, the thing is, in theory, but theory is, reality is a poor approximation to theory. So
how have you boys been doing then?
I had the Rona last week.
Oh.
Again, second time in 2.5 years. But it was nowhere near as bad as the first time, thankfully. It was just more like a heavy cold now. I just felt shit throughout, well, I say about 3 days, but I'm still kind of feeling a bit ropey now, almost a week later. But I'm on the mend, so all I'm doing now is just blowing my nose a bit, whereas last week I was just achy bones, snot and sore throat and cough, that's all it was. So at this point, though COVID's just basically a cough and a cold these days, and I think it should be treated as such. Assuming one has been vaccinated accordingly.
I was convinced this is the third time you had it, I'd swore you'd had it earlier this year, but...
No.
I looked back I actually looked back for the chat methods because I was adamant I was right.
Really?
I thought but it ends up you'd had a flu, and me and Sid were saying, we're trying to wind you up saying you had the Rona, and... You didn't test positive that time. So
thing is, I haven't tested positive this time either. Although Laura did test positive this time.
Right.
So, and then, of course, she got it first, and then I got it because, my housemate is a dirty, pestilent, disease-spreading layabout. But,
I love that you're still calling her your housemate.
Of course.
All these years later, that is still a running gag. That Bonus points, listeners, if you were there when that gag started.
Oh, yeah.
I just realised I have no idea what you do for a living, Andy.
Neither do I, don't worry. Nobody knows what I do, mate.
Okay, fair enough.
That's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. It's permanent job security. But at the same time, risky. No,
I don't really care.
it doesn't matter. No, I wear a number of professional hats, let's put it that way. Okay. But I'm mostly
makes the
customer-facing.
tea, sweeps the floors.
Yes. Actually, I make the tea for the guy who makes the coffee.
I like that. I like that.
Anyway, we should probably move on.
What, talk about some games on this gaming podcast?
Good Lord!
Are you mad? We haven't talked about the weather. We haven't talked about how dark it is.
It is getting dark, though. Jesus.
That didn't take much encouragement, did it?
Well, no, it's true, though. It is.
Last time we recorded, it was sunny and it was
Back in my day.
Back in my day, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was.
You're right,
it was
though,
hot
it was.
and it was sunny.
I'm convinced, right, because obviously, having done astronomy, I know how it actually works, but I'm convinced, right, that it takes about 6 months for the days to get longer, from basically January to June or whatever it is. Well, December 21st, really, technically speaking, to June. And then it takes 2 days for them to get pitch black.
I think you're probably right, actually. I think you're probably right.
September the 21st and the 22nd.
Well, it's June the 21st is the longest period of daylight, and by 2 months later it's pitch black, whereas it takes 6 months to get to that point. Yeah. It's bollocks.
It's not fair. It's not fair. But anyway,
it's not fair.
Oh, when it's windy, isn't it? It's windy at the moment.
Well, not according to our data analysts. It's not.
Okay.
Or at least, if you had to ask my boss, that's a particular bugbear of his. Now, for those of you who actually do know what I do for a living and for the type of company I work for, we make devices that measure the wind. And one of the things we do is we validate them against a reference to make sure, obviously, they're all kosher. And that requires
when you say a reference,
wind.
is that someone in a field who licks their finger and puts it in the air? Yep.
It's not that precise, mate. Come on. No, it's actually a 91-metre mast. It's it's actually quite a... It's a touchy subject for those in the industry, but anyway, that all happens, and of course it needs some wind. So during the summer, it can take a lot longer for the right number of data points to be gathered because there's bugger all wind, and it's a particular bugbear of my boss at the moment because he's trying to shift units out the door, and we're trying to wait for the wind to validate these bloody things. So that's all fun. In the winter, it's not a problem because it happens in about 3 days because it's out blowing a hoolie, but in the summer, it's not so much fun at all.
I really wasn't expecting that to be such a segue. It was just a throwaway comment because we've talked about the weather on the last several podcasts. So
do you know what it is? It's because I've had a mug of coffee.
That's it. That's exactly the reason.
And it's not regular sort of Nescafe either. It's Andy Strength stovetop percolator mud. The kind of shit in about half an hour I'll be able to smell colours.
I wonder, right, if in this podcast we can find the exact caffeine crash moment when
Andy just slumps down
when it wears off. Oh, I don't know. Actually, I was going to say it wouldn't wear off in an hour, but then again, I drink that much coffee and caffeine these days, it probably would. I'm surprised it's affected me already. Anyway, we should move on.
We should move on.
What's the board game news then, eh?
Hang on a minute. Am I the one who's produced most of the news items here? Bloody hell.
Yes.
That's a first.
So go on then, lead us into it then.
Well, there is, for those of you in the know, there is a new expansion stroke standalone, so an expandalone, TM Steve Tudor 2018, for Tainted Grail. I keep calling it Kings of Leon, but it's not Kings of Leon. It's Kings of Ruin?
Kings of Ruin, yeah.
Kings of Ruin, not Kings of Leon. Although it would be good if it was the Kings of Leon. And that is currently, as of the 4th of October, as we record, live on GameFound. And with any joy, it still will be by the time this podcast reaches your luggles. And it is currently doing rather well. I believe it has got over 13,000 backers and well over 2 million squids. So one might say it's probably going to succeed.
13 days left as of today, so that you should be hearing this podcast by the time it finishes.
We'd like to think so. But I mean, I can speak from personal experience that Tainted Grail itself is bloody brilliant. We have covered it in a previous podcast. Go back and listen to it if you already haven't. But I would strongly recommend backing it. Guess if I have or not. But it's also another chance to back the original box and all of its sort of expansions and bits and bobs and what have you, with a few updates actually. So they've sort of tweaked and improved a couple of bits and bobs based on some feedback from the community from the last couple of years. So that is currently live on GameFound, and it's called Kings of Ruin, and it's by Awaken Realms.
I've just opened the page and seen
Steve
the stretch
accidentally
goals.
backed it.
Oh no, I backed this day one.
All right, okay.
I decided I missed out on the last one, and I regret. Even though I got a Kickstarter copy in the end, which I bought second hand, I do regret not backing the first one when it came out. Wasn't quite sure to trust it. I've only played the first chapter of Tainted Grail, but it is really good. It's hard.
It is hard.
Really good.
It is hard.
So I decided, yes, I'm on this, and it might give me. I'm in two minds now. Right, that's the dilemma I've got. Because one of the things that's part of this Kickstarter, GameFound project, or whatever it's properly called these days, is an update for the original. So you get an add-on, which is an updated rule book and an updated storybook. So now, do I leave my existing Tainted Grail and order the upgrades, or do I just play the Tainted Grail I currently got and not order the upgrades?
Do both, then you can play it again with the upgrades. Well, put it this way, I'm still halfway through or more than halfway through the original campaign. I'm on chapter 9, I think it is, of 15 or so. I've not played it for ages, really, to get back into it. But I have ordered the updates, because I will almost certainly be playing through the campaign again, because there's that much stuff in the campaign, you will not see it all on your single playthrough. You won't. You just won't. There's so much stuff in it. So it's definitely, I would say, definitely get it. And for the sake of like £4 or whatever it is, I reckon it's probably worth it.
And it's £8, is it?
Something like that. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
There's like one for the storybook, one for the campaign book, and then there's the ancient, whatever it is, the expansion ones, and then there's the Red Death one, and then I think if you buy all of them, which I've done, it's about £30 for all of the add-ons. So it's not actually too much money, really, for all of it, assuming you've got all of it. If you've not, then obviously you're not going to spend that much money.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So I think for the sake of £4, for £7 or whatever it is, then I think it's worth it. You'll play it more than once. You're going to have to see all the game.
That's fair enough.
Sound advice.
So yes, that's you're very welcome for once. I mean, I'm producing sound advice. So yeah, that's Kings of Ruin by Awaken Realms, and that's currently on GameFound. Another one, this is more of a thing for, I think, just myself and Steve, is ISS Vanguard is now, I think, definitely more than on the boat. I believe it's starting to fulfill, because I've seen a few folk in America receiving their copies, and obviously with Essen coming up, I think there's a few copies floating around Europe at the moment. So this is another Awaken Realms game. I think, and it is. Is this another David Turksey? No, it's not.
No.
I'm thinking of Voidfall. So this is another Awaken Realms game, and if I understand it rightly, because I haven't actually read too much of the blurb on it, but my understanding is it's a sort of sci-fi kind of thing, in a similar vein to Tainted Grail, and that's a branching storyline, and you're sort of poking around space rather than Avalon. But that is looking particularly good, and it is now shipping.
You're a bit excited about that, aren't you?
I am, yeah, because I was in two minds when I first backed it, because I backed it and then didn't, and then backed it. Oh no, I'm thinking of Voidfall again. No, never mind. No, I went all in on this.
Voidfall is the one that you backed, and I said, well, I won't back it because Andy's backing it, and I'm only going to probably play it with him. Then you cancelled your pledge, so I backed it, and at the last minute you backed it as well, and it was too late for me to back that.
Oh, no,
you couldn't. No, you couldn't, because I late pledged it. That's right. You're already in. Because I just had such a massive amount of FOMO on Voidfall. I thought, come on, it's a big DVT game. It's going to be good, and it's being made by Mind Clash, so it's going to be a good game. Yeah, it's going to be solid and well presented. So it'd be stupid not to. But I do feel there is a feeling that maybe the backlog caused by COVID is starting to ease a little bit. You know, things are starting to move and shipping's starting to become a little bit better.
I did see something that basically says that shipping rates, container rates had dropped quite reasonable. Still not to pre-COVID levels, but they dropped quite a bit.
Yeah.
So well past the peak in that regard. A bit too late to help the old June war game from Simon, but there you go.
Oh, jeez, yeah, that was. How many kidneys would you like to put towards this box? Oh my God!
Did we mention that on the podcast? I don't think we did we?
No, I don't think we did.
No, yeah. See, Rory, you're probably not up on this chat we've been having out of podcast. So the June board game was announced by Simon, and it's by the makers of War of the Ring. So basically, it's a 2-player war game set on Arrakis, dice-based, like dice placement, because that's what War of the Ring will be. Simon, so beautiful minis.
Yeah.
I thought, I want this game. This is my kind of game. I love this kind of thing. And then they announced it, and it was along the lines of $120 for the base pledge, but there wasn't much in the way of add-ons, to be fair. Then $66 shipping to the UK.
Christ.
Then 20% VAT on all of that previously.
So that's 20% VAT on the 200 quid, is that?
On the 120 plus the 66.
Yes, okay, that's 186.
Which took you to $220.
So almost doubles the price.
So almost doubles the price. And what's really, of course, the pound has sunk because of our politicians being useless. And so basically, or even more useless than usual, which means that basically you can convert that straight to pounds now. Yeah,
that's £220 to buy to just for one game with no
game.
No frills. That's the base level though as well. That's
no. This Simon have actually changed the tact a little bit. This is still the Kickstarter level, so you still get some Kickstarter stuff.
Yeah,
but it wasn't anywhere near to the level of previous Kickstarter things. It wasn't like Simon where you get like 6 boxes of stacked high. The delivery man puts his back out. It didn't seem to be anywhere near that level. So of course I just went, I can't afford that. No. And what got me was the Kickstarter was like, save 20% on the retail price.
So the retail price is going to be 250 quid?
No.
Oh, I don't think so.
No. The retail price is 120. It is 130. No. So save $20, not 20%. Save $20, I think it was. So the retail price is going to be $140.
So in reality, that'll be about 100 quid once it hits the shelves.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the time
So I could back now and pay $220 or wait and pay 100 quid. Back now!
Interesting.
Exactly.
This is exactly where I am with most of my Kickstarters. Because I've realised the other day that by the time we record our next podcast, I will have no outstanding Kickstarters to be delivered.
Wow,
I'm going to be by the time we record next, I've got one more game to come, and once that's it, I've got nothing on Kickstarter at all.
Jesus, I
didn't think that's going to be the first time in maybe 8 years, 6 years that I've not been waiting for something on Kickstarter. But I'm at the point now where I'm thinking, actually, what is the point? Other than the only point I can see now of me going for a Kickstarter is to either A, support that publisher, or B, get myself a really good deal. Because I'm getting a bit sick of publishers that do, here's all your Kickstarter exclusives to get all that FOMO, as you mentioned earlier, Andy. I don't like that. And I was thinking about this, that like Leader Games are probably one of my favourite Kickstarter publishers. Because they never do Kickstarter exclusives. When they go, this is the game, this is what you're going to get, and if you back it now and help us fulfill it and get the quantity we want to order, then you just get it. You get it early, and you get it at cheaper
discount. Yeah,
discount.
See, that makes sense,
and I like that. That. I still have to pay for shipping. No, like with Root, for example, the next Root Kickstarter, when that comes out, I'm going to back that day one because I know I'm going to get it. And if I can get it for like 30, 40 quid off with all the bells and whistles, because I am going to get all the bells and whistles.
Is there another one coming?
There's one more. Apparently, I remember reading somewhere that the next one is the last Root. But
they surely can't add any more to it. I've got 3 or 4 boxes of it.
I know. But see, that's what I like. I'm at the point now with Kickstarter, unless it's a publisher that I particularly want to support, or the game is going to be, it's going to be a discounted price. Don't even care that much about getting it early. the amount of game backlog I've got. I'm still clearing games that I picked up at the UK Expo. Getting a game 3 months early doesn't mean anything to me. Getting it at a decent price, though, I'll do that.
Yeah, with a bit of extra chucked in, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were asked this question a couple of years ago, actually, and I can't remember what we all said at the time, but I suspect we're probably changing our tune to whatever we said back then, more in line with what you're saying there. Because, I mean, I've got quite a few still to come, obviously, but I'm not backing anywhere near as many as I used to.
No.
Yeah.
And not because I can't afford it, just because, partly because I don't have the time to play it, B, because I've completely run out of space. And C, it is getting prohibitively expensive for what you're actually getting now.
You take into the shipping, and then if you've got to pay that, you've got to pay the tax, the VAT on top of that.
Yeah.
Actually, as we were saying with that Dune game, I can just wait for it to get into the shop.
Yeah. I don't disagree at all.
And then I want to support those publishers that don't do any of the Kickstarter exclusives. Actually, I like you because I'm not missing out. I'm not paying ridiculous sums of money just to get a couple of extra models.
I mean, I will, but only to be fair, only for a specific set of publishers like you, Rory. I mean, Awaken Realms, stuff I am very interested in. They're never cheap, but to be fair, you do get a lot for your money, assuming I'm interested in what they're doing. And Eagle Griffin Games producing a game, I'm going to back that day one straight away, balls deep, because they are staggeringly good.
Well, I think us not backing games may be the reason for our next news article.
Oh, he's done it. He's done another great segue. Look at that. Look at that.
Look at that. As smooth as a syrup enema.
Right, you can tell Steve's been sat there waiting for us to stop talking so he can get that in.
I have indeed. So the this isn't Kickstarter. Actually, this was a game found, but Board Cubator were making a Kingdom Come Deliverance board game. Now, I must admit, I'm not massively familiar with the original IP, but Kingdom Come Deliverance is a video game. And this is a board game based on that video game. And if I was to give it an example of something else, I would say...
Oathsworn.
It is very similar to Destiny, the way it's looked. It's app-driven. It's app-driven. It's got a board that's kind of tiles that get laid out to show you a map. So that kind of Destiny's Mansions of Madness kind of thing, all set in this like gritty medieval world. It's a medieval world. It's not a fancy world. It's all a medieval world. Well,
oh my God, this does look good. Where can I get it, Steve?
However, the project has been cancelled.
Oh,
damn it.
And the project has been cancelled because it wasn't doing... the project wasn't doing well. What they've said is the project was not doing well enough. So they said that even though they'd set a funding goal, which I can't remember what the funding goal was now. Oh, it met its funding goal because it had a £100,000 funding goal. So the point when it cancelled, it was actually 318.9% funded.
Wow.
They said that they didn't actually meet the funding they needed, the real funding.
Right, the real funding goal.
Yes. So they said that what they actually needed was 1.5 million euros.
That's a bit of a shortfall.
And they said they needed 10,000 backers.
How many did they have at the...
Or 6 Andes.
6 people going all in.
Yeah.
They had 2,000 backers.
Right, okay.
So it wasn't
That's
doing
not
awful.
shabby. That's not shabby at all.
Now, of course, this hit social media and everyone was up in arms. Why don't these companies put the proper funding goal on? And this is what's really sad about this news, actually, is the developers have basically said this is dead, the project's dead, and we are dead.
Yeah.
They're basically closing the development house making this. They basically said this was our only project. We now can't keep the doors open, so we'll shut the doors, turn the lights off, and off we go.
Yeah, so that's a livelihood that's gone for a bunch of people there, hasn't it?
So I thought this was an interesting discussion topic in a way because it sounds absolutely nuts to me. I've not heard of this board cubator before. I have only a vague knowledge of Kingdom Come Deliverance, the video game.
Never heard of it.
I didn't know this Kickstarter existed. Sorry, this Game Fan project existed until this news came out.
Yeah.
And they were hoping to get 10,000 backers.
Yeah.
Now, to put that into some context, the June Kickstarter we just mentioned, so that's Simon and June.
Big IP, big publisher, well established.
11,000 backers.
Right.
Simon's previous Kickstarter, again, big company.
Yeah. Well,
based on the big IP, based on the Cyberpunk video game.
okay, yeah, that's a big one, yeah.
Got 6,000 backers.
Right.
Now, I picked another one randomly out of my head, what I could find for another video game one. I also looked at Mythic's Darkest Dungeon. Now, that got 23,000 backers.
That should have been 23,001. I pulled at the last minute.
But that gives you an idea of these things can sway massively.
Yeah.
You know, a project can do well and get 5,000 backers. A project can do amazing and get 20 to 30,000 backers. I think like some of the Simon's top ones, like some of the not Kingdom Death Monsters, some of the Zombicide Marvel ones are in like 30,000 backers, but they're like they're the top tier. So I know a lot of people say that they should have put their real funding goal on. If they put 1.5 million as a funding goal, no one would have backed it because everyone would have gone.
It would have been. It's completely
goal.
unrealistic. Yeah.
Which is obviously why they did what they did. The thing is, I don't honestly think it would have made any bloody difference because if people had known about it and if people had gone, yeah, this game's amazing, I'm going to back the board game version of it, they'd have done it. And obviously either A, they didn't because they either think the video game is shit, or they didn't know about this and their video game is not board gamers. I don't know. I don't think it would have made a huge amount of difference. Because either you're going to back something like that or you're not, aren't you?
True, but like you said, the three of us, let's just say, for the sake of argument, we have our fingers on the board game crowdfunding pulse, but none of us knew about it.
Well, that's exactly my point.
The faces you guys pulled when I said that indicates that we're clearly not.
We have our fingers on the pulse of a rotting corpse, I think.
Okay, right, fair enough. We might not be the best examples, but none of us had heard of this game at all in any of the social media on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, in just our general chats with other people, in our perusing of board game media and like news articles. None of us had seen this. Even like, there's in our little chat, we are talking about these Kickstarters. Oh, I've seen this. This looks interesting. Oh, I've seen that. So it's like we are perusing these platforms. Just have a look what's there. And none of us saw this game. None of us have heard of this company before.
No, I mean, as an example, recently the Euthia crowdfund completed. I mean, it's just doing its pledge manager thing at the moment. But I saw the first time Euthia was around, or rather I saw when Euthia was being delivered the first time. People were making massive, fuss about it because it's huge great boxes of miniatures and stuff like that. And I wondered what the hell it was. And that was 6 months, a year ago now. But it recently created a new one. And I only really knew about that it had basically done a new one and an update for it, because I was just getting absolutely spammed on Instagram. Every 3 pages you're scrolling through, advert for Euthia, advert for Euthia, advert for Euthia. Now, admittedly, that's from, I think it's Mythic actually that are doing that as well, or Steamforge, one of the two. I can't remember.
It was two different companies. So one company did it, and then they cancelled for exactly the same reasons. They cancelled the Kickstarter, so they said weren't going to fund, and then Steamforge took it on.
That's right. Yes.
And then they did get full funding for it. Yeah.
Yes.
Did you back that in the end then?
I did.
Oh.
Yes.
I was unsure about that one because it did look like a kitchen sink game.
Yes, yeah, they've thrown everything at it. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I'm curious to see what it's like more than anything else, because it does look like my kind of cheese, but I don't know anything about it other than it looks kind of fun. But anyway, the point being is that the reason I knew about that is because I was advertised at. Now, you can argue about selective advertising as much as you want, but even if selective advertising is true, why the hell have I not seen anything about Kingdom Come Deliverance? Because I'm on Board Game Media, I'm on, I do board game miniatures.
You pay attention to this
I pay
stuff,
attention to it. I get those adverts clearly. I hashtag board gaming when I'm painting miniatures, when I'm talking about stuff on my Instagram and stuff. So I am stunned I saw nothing about it, especially something to do with video gaming, because usually they are massive.
Yeah.
Because a cross-platform IP is not usually undertaken lightly. So it's an interesting one.
Interesting. Now, you mentioned painting.
He's done it again.
Look at that. Look at that.
But this was actually, I wasn't sure to include this, but we were actually chatting about this in another group, and it got quite a bit of discussion. So Army Painter, who make miniature paints.
Make paints for armies, yes.
Made a very interesting video this week. They put out this video basically saying, we realise we've had a lot of feedback recently, and it's not been good. And basically even used clips from several mini painting YouTubers. I think I'd already seen all the videos that referenced.
I was going to say, I've seen at least two of the ones mentioned in there. I follow them.
There was Ninjon and Squidmar was the ones I distinctly remember. Yeah. Basically saying that they thought that the paints were a bit crap. And the Squidmar one's quite interesting because on that one they were comparing like 8 different paint manufacturers, weren't they, and doing like for like comparisons. It's a really fascinating video actually if you're into
very good.
painting.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah. And basically they said that we've noticed these comments and we're taking this all on board. And like for starters, a lot of people complain about the mixing of Army Painter paints. They don't seem to mix, so they're now going to put a ball bearing in every single drop of bottle.
Ball bearings.
Oh, 2 ball bearings
To help with mixing. Oh, very nice.
to help with mixing. And they are opening up like a suggestion box basically and saying we want to hear any suggestions you have to what we can do, help us improve, that kind of thing.
That's blinding, that is. That's great stuff. Because it'd
Is
be
it,
very
though?
easy. Yeah, because it'd be very easy for them to just go, it's all right, we've got our target, demographic base, people are going to buy these anyway, and carry on. And, they're obviously turning enough profit to stay in business.
They're doing really well, according to a follow-up video I was watching, actually.
So that's it. But the fact that they're willing to just go, actually, if people are complaining, let's find room to improve.
Which is a really good...
Which is
I think
really good.
It is really good. I mean, commercially, it's very astute because they've taken... I mean, we've talked in the past about certain... Kickstarter crowdfunding publishers more than anything else. When somebody criticises something, there's ways to handle criticism. Some do it really, really well. Take it on board and go, thanks for your feedback. We'll look into that. They might not do anything about it, but at least they're professional and polite. Some get litigious. So it's nice to see that Army Painter have done this, and they've done it. It's a really good video, to be fair. They show you around the facility. They show you exactly what they've done. They show you this is the problem. These are the people who have or some of the people who have given us feedback via various platforms. This is this is how we're trying to combat the problem. But we are being proactive about improvement, which is great. I think really genuinely good. As a commercial exercise, I think it's an excellent thing to do.
But also for you as an end user, aren't you? You're going to benefit from this as well. If those paints improve, you're going to see a benefit.
I think they've missed a point, and maybe they've missed it deliberately. Maybe they're working on something in the background. I don't know, but I think one of the comments. This is more to do with once you are into miniature painting. I started with Army Painter. I've got their massive, this is everything in.
Yeah, I do Army Painter as well. So yeah.
So I do like what they do. So please, nobody think I'm actually dissing them because I'm not. I do lose a lot of their stuff, and I think their inks are amazing. Their washes are really, really good.
I was going to say actually, the one thing I've really noticed is their ink wash is the hard tone and mid-tone.
Yeah, their dark tone is
brilliant.
Yeah, their dark tone is such a good black.
Yeah,
it's a lot stronger than Null Oil. Null Oil's a bit more matte, so if you want a different finish, it's nice. But I think the dark tone is such a good dark black ink. It's brilliant. Anyway, so their inks are very good, although their red ink's a bit shit. But anyway, their blue ink's brilliant. But anyway, I think they're good. They're good value for starter painters, but I will say they do need a lot of work in terms of getting them sometimes onto a model, and B, the mixing thing. So obviously they've addressed that by putting ball bearings into the pot, so you shake them up and stuff, because they can take a lot more mixing really. So I've got like a vortex mixer for mixing paints now, because I get through that many of them. I did my wrist in. So, right, no, Vortex
Get
mix this, and off it
repetitive
goes.
strain injury from painting.
Pretty much, yes.
He's getting wanker's cramp.
Pretty much, yes.
Well, I
Yes,
was going to say that, Steve, but thanks for lowering the tone.
So they've obviously addressed that, which is great. But I think part of the problem I found with AP paints is that they absorb quite a lot of water. I think it's obviously what they're made of, but which is fine when you're doing a sort of short paint session. And I use a wet palette, which is why I've noticed it. If you leave the paint on the wet palette for a while, obviously the wet palette is designed to keep the paint wet.
Wet, yeah.
Great. So you can paint for longer, it doesn't dry up on your palette, and you don't go through as much paint. Brilliant. The problem is I found that Army Painter it's almost like a sponge. It absorbs that much water that quickly that if you leave your wet palette overnight, for example, even sealed, you come back in the morning, you basically got a wash. It's that it's honestly, it's that runny, and it's essentially useless at that point, where other paints are not quite as absorbing. Now, you can take that as a pro or a con, because it means that it's always quite runny when you need it and you're doing it in quick succession, whereas I have found actually Vallejo dries slightly too quickly on the wet palette, weirdly. That's actually not absorbing enough. But there's obviously different ranges do different things. Your mileage may vary. But so I think that's part of the issue I have with the Army Painter, that putting it onto a model sometimes requires a little bit more effort and a little bit more work than perhaps it should. But then again, some of their paints are really, really, really good. So again, I think it might just come down to the individual paints in their range compared to other paints, because no range is perfect all the way across. So
yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? You'll find, I think, with any painter, you need to pick and mix some paints from each one, because you'll
take
go,
a red one
this
from
is
here,
a fantastic blue.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
oh, very much so. Yeah, I mean, don't use Vallejo's fluorescent yellow, for example, because it's like toothpaste. It's terrible. But scale colours yellow, really good.
See, I used some Vallejo, was it Pale Sand, yesterday, and I put a drop, and I don't know whether I hadn't. You wet palette, and it's supposed to be wet underneath, and so it soaks up from above. I'm not quite sure some water had got on top. I put this drop on it. There's this massive puddle all over the wet palette.
Yep.
It's like, well, I was going to mix colours and use it like a proper artist palette, but I'm going to have to now.
Everything's just been tinted with pale sand.
Everything's
well
yellow.
done, nice one. Everything looks slightly pale beige. Nice. But yeah, no. As an exercise, I think it was overall a good response to criticism. So it's good. I think it's a positive thing for them to have done. What have we been playing?
I've been playing loads of games.
What have you been playing, Rory?
I've been winning at games. Loads of stuff. I've been playing a lot of this game, Andy. I've been playing a lot of Bonfire by Pegasus Spiel and Hall Games by Stefan Feld. Yeah. I
am aware of its work.
Love this game. I played it last night. I played it last night. I played it. I think I've only owned the game. I've only had the game in my collection for about 2 weeks, and I've already played it 5 or 6 times. I've played it so much that I'm dreaming about this game. I wake up and I know I've been dreaming about it. I'm trying to think about making a cup of tea as a task that I've got to complete so I can get a bonfire. That's how much this game has got into my head.
I think you need to get out more, mate.
Maybe I
get
do.
Out more.
I know this game caused quite a bit of a fuss when it first came out. It was rather popular, but I know nothing else about it apart from it's got a weird bloke. Is this the one with like a juggler on the cover?
It's an elven. It's an elven guardian. It's an elven guardian. It's a spiritual guardian on the front above a bonfire.
Hippie.
I thought it was a crusty juggler.
Crusty juggler. It's a hippie, is what it is.
Yeah. But no, I absolutely love this game, and I mentioned it to Andy, and he disagreed.
Well, why don't you tell me what this game is first,
Rory?
Rory?
Tell us why you love this right? shower of mediocrity so much.
Why? Right.
Spoiler.
Right, okay. This game, right, now this is a Euro game. This is Euro game. So the theme is it's not even paper thin. It's like
the theme is bullshit. Let's not beat about the bullshit. The theme is bullshit.
For some reason, there's a great bonfire which is more what's the word I'm trying to say? Reminiscent.
Representative.
Representative.
Okay,
There's a great bonfire which is more reminiscent of a wheel or a clock than it is a bonfire.
A ball of magic is what it is.
Ball of magic, yeah. So
right off the bat, it's badly named, so we're starting badly. Go on.
Right, but this game is, you have got an altar, and on your altar you've got 7 spots for bonfires. You're trying to light these bonfires to get the spirit guardians to come back, because the bonfires give you magical fairy dust and you can fly, or whatever bullshit that is. Anyway, you're just trying to light
the
these.
theme is bullshit.
The idea is, you've got this board, it's a semicircle, it's got 7 spots on it for bonfires. You need to go and collect these tasks. The task will be a various things. Go and get this, go and do this, have 2 things here, whatever it is. That's not important. Once you've completed the task, you turn that over, it's now a lit bonfire, it's worth some points. On top of that, you're trying to build a bridge. So around this semicircle board, you've got these circular pieces, these kind of sections of a path that are going to go across the top of your board. And using that path, you're going to send your guardians, which are these little models, around here, and you want them to ultimately stand next to a lit bonfire. But to do that, you also need to collect a portal, which is the connecting piece between your actual semicircle board and these paths that go around the edges, and they're all different shapes. So you need to get your guardians next to a lit bonfire, and to do that you've got to get a path and a portal in the right combination at the right time there, and you also want the bonfire to be the same colour as the crystal that's on the path to get loads of points. All right? So with me so far?
Right. Okay.
Right.
I think I lost you about when you started talking about bridges.
Right,
After that, I've
yeah,
lost
bridges,
you. But carry on.
Bridges and
Yeah,
right. So you need to go. You need to go and collect. You need to go and collect bridges. You need to go and collect tasks. You need to go and collect portals. And to complete a task, you need some resources. And to get resources, only way to get those is to move your guardians along the paths, or to turn the great bonfire to. There's a lot going on.
To complete a little puzzle.
But to complete, right, I'm going to come to the puzzle in a second.
Right, okay.
I think we need to take a break, have a cup of tea, and come back and talk about the. Right? Yeah. Just let all of that sink in.
Steve, what Rory has said sounds horribly complicated. It isn't actually anywhere near as complicated as it sounds. It's not.
When you see it, it gets more. But one of the really interesting thing about this game is your action selection. So you've got this kind of little grid in front of you, and the middle of it is you're going to place an action tile, or a fate tile as they're called, and the fate tile will have 3 icons on it, and those 3 icons relate to the 3 of the 6 actions you can do, which is sail, collect a bridge, make an offering, blah blah blah. So you've got 3 of these icons on there. And they will give you these 3 tiles. You spend those tiles to do the thing. So for me to sail, I've got to spend my sail tile, my sail action token. Do that. I no longer can't sail until I pick up another one. To pick up another one, I've got to pick up another fate tile, but I can only pick from the top or the bottom of this row of fate tiles, of which I've got 7, I think. Might be 8.
I think it's 7, yeah. So either 7 or 9. It's an odd number.
It's an odd number. I can only take either... So I've got them in this little display to my side. I can only take the top or the bottom one. When I take one of those, I place it in my grid. It's got to be adjacent to one that's already there. But if I can match up the symbols, if I can get a sail next to a sail, then I get a double sail action. If I get in, but if I can square that up, so I've got 2 sails next to 2 card purchases, then I get 2 sails, 2 card purchases, and whatever the other option is. And if I can get them to cover up one of the bonuses on the little grid, I get some bonus. That could be gold, which is a wildcard resource, or a wildcard action. So that's what you got to do. This is why this game I think is so wonderful. You've got to really look at and plan your actions all ahead. Everyone's actions are going to be slightly different. I think the tiles are quite different, and they're all going to be in a different order. And every time you play the game, because it's randomized, they are all going to be in a different order. So although this game I start with these 3 actions, next game I won't. And not only that, the next potential actions I can take are going to be wildly different as well. And that completely changes how I'm going to have to approach this game. It completely changes my strategy to try and accomplish these goals, which is light bonfires, move guardians, build paths, and collect portals. there's a lot going on in this game, and it sounds complicated. But if we had the board in front of us, if I explained it to you, or really just go and watch Paul Grogan do a 25-minute video as opposed to me yab it on for an hour, you will get it. You'll just get it, and you'll be able to play. It's not that difficult. What's difficult about this game is the intricacies between all of the things you have to do. You have to sail, you have to do an offering, you have to use the right resources to do that. You then have to complete that task. You then have to get a bridge and a portal and move the Guardian. And you need all of this to interlink and synergize so that you can score well. And it's fantastic. It's a game that can be really AP inducing, but when this game clicked, and it's really clicked with me, I love it. I'd play it again tonight. We're going to finish podcasting, and then I can go around to a mate's house, and I could play it. I would play this game starting at 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, because I love it that much. Andy.
Okay. The barrister, the right honourable gentleman for the claimant, has
case for the defence.
Case for the defence. Please make your closing remarks.
Right. Firstly, I think, other than the stupid name and the stupid theme, most of the mechanics in Bonfire are actually very solid. To be fair to it, they are very solid.
Okay, so that's a point to me so far, right? Ding.
It's so far. So yeah, the bonfire, the portals, and the little path where you've got to get folk up. That's really tight and that's really clever. I do like that, and that's very, very good. But the putting down tiles to get resources, that could right off. It's too faffy.
The little grid thing.
It's too much of a pain in the arse.
It's so clever, Andy.
It is. It's a pain in the arse. It's unnecessary, and there's too many fucking resource tokens to move around.
There's 6.
There's 8, and too many of them. It's a pain in the neck. It's unnecessarily faffy. That's my problem with it.
I'll grant you, there are a lot of chits. Yeah,
it is just a pain in the arse.
You've got a bunch of wooden chits. You've got a bunch of cardboard chits for every action, and then you've got a bunch of resources. So the things like shells, leaves, roots. So there are a lot of bits to this game.
There's a lot of shite floating around that doesn't need to be there.
But there's no other way you'd organise this. I've thought about this.
Well, you could have trackers. You could have...
Yeah, but that would
simplify it and streamline it.
I'd have to have another board. I'd have to have another... Because it already takes up a lot of table space, this game. I've already got my personal board, which I need space above it and below it. Then I've got my fate token action tile board.
Hey,
if I then had...
You don't?
Yeah, if I had my fate token, my fate token's that little board.
Oh, that little thing that sits to the side?
Sits to the side where my fate token sits. Doesn't take up much space, but then if I had that, plus a tracker for all my resources, of which if you did the 6 resources plus the action tokens, that's quite a big board as well there. But so each player is then going to need quite a bit of space. Or they can just have some tokens.
The islands just seem like a part of the game that just doesn't need really to be there. I know it gives you the stuff that you use on a bonfire.
No,
it just feels like
the islands make it a challenge. The islands make it really tricky.
They make it a pain in the arse and a.
That's the point of the islands. It's meant to be difficult. That's where you're meant to go. Right. If you could just go anywhere and pick up any challenge, then the game would already fall over. The fact that you need to try and get your tasks to work with each other so that there is some sort of synergy, so that you don't have to spread yourself too thin and try and do too much because you don't have enough time to do that. I want this task and this one because this one's red, this one's blue, so the blue one's easy, the red one's medium, and they kind of work together because if I do this one, I'm halfway to completing this one. And then if I get that yellow one down there, by the time I've done the red one, I'll also have completed the yellow one. Because these
and if
three
I just whip that one
together.
away, your synergy falls on its arse.
Absolutely, and that's where some great player interaction comes in, because you have to be able to adapt, but it's so hard to adapt in this game. But try and keep yourself flexible.
And that's why it's annoying.
Yes, it's annoying.
That's why it's annoying.
Good. It's a good annoying. When someone does a dick move on you, when someone does it, it's really frustrating.
It's the same problem that Raiders of the North Sea has. You can work towards something, and if someone pulls something out from under you, you are and it's extremely unforgiving and extremely annoying. And I still think it's too faffy. There are too many tokens, and it just feels like the islands are like they feel like a second part of the game. The stuff with the portals and the stuff on your player board and the little bonfire that rotates around and the little pedestals, that all works really, really, really well. But the islands just seem like a sort of secondary game. And it's like, do you remember Petrichor, Steve, where you had like the voting system and the bits with the clouds, and they just felt like two games smashed together? It feels like that.
Okay.
No, but Andy, that's the point of it. You've got to use this action economy. You've got your sales, you've got your offering tiles, which you've collected. So there's whether you track them or whether you get little tokens is neither here nor there.
I'm well aware of how it works. I've played it a few times.
You have to use those. It's such an action economy. So I can go to this island, do this, and then go to this island and do that. Because one of the great things about this game is because you're only going to be able to do a sale action, there's a finite amount of times you're going to be able to ever do that in the game. And the only way to do that slightly more is to link them together on this little board or pick up some other bonuses. But really, I'm only going to be able to sail 6 times. So it's using those 6 times as efficiently as possible. That's what the game's about. It's about efficiency.
And that's probably why I don't like it. Or I don't dislike it. That's not fair. It's not a bad game. It's just not that interesting. Because it falls into this really annoying, if you make one mistake, you category. And I really don't like games like that. It's like Cooper Island. It's like Tekkenu to a way. It's like a couple of other things that we've played recently. I think this is a really annoying trend in games at the moment. Have you have 6 turns and then that's the end of the game. And if you make a mistake on turn 1, you cannot recover. And I hate that.
No, because
it basically means for 5 turns of the game, you're bored and you got your thumb up your arse and you're just miserable. And I don't like that.
No, and I granted, Bonfire is a very unforgiving game. If you make a mistake, it is hard to come back from that. And if you make more than one mistake, you are out of the game. And I think it's got a very steep learning curve as well. Like, if I put this game down in front of someone that hasn't played, as I did last night, we wipe the floor with them. Because I already understand how everything links together. And they can understand the rules. They can go off, watch a video, read the rule book, and watch a playthrough. But they won't understand how all these things really interconnect until you've played it, until you've done it. It is an unforgiving game. But that makes it more interesting for me, because it means that actually in every turn there is an optimum move. This turn there is a best thing that I can do, and it's trying to work out what that best thing is. And that happens every single turn for the entire game for every player. And that makes it a really interesting puzzle for me.
That's fine. To me, that makes it frustrating, because if you get it wrong, you're at the game and your game's over and you just basically sat around. But
you're assuming that your opponent is never going to get it wrong as well. That's the thing. I realise that it's only as fallible as the people around the table, and
sure, of course,
everyone's going to.
But then if you're playing,
playing David Turksey, right, and you make a mistake, you just pack up and go away. But if you're playing a normal human being,
to be fair, if I can play David Turksey, not make a mistake, and still lose. I don't know, there's just something about it I find extremely meh. It's not bad by any means, any stretch of the imagination, and if you put it in front of me, I'd probably play it. I don't hate it, don't get me wrong. It is by no means a bad game. I've played far worse games than Bonfire. Yeah. I just don't think it's as good as the hype makes out.
See, and for me, this is... I know it didn't come out this year, but this is one of my gems of 2020.
But this is why I bought it, because of all of the hype. I've seen so much positivity about it. I thought, well, it's a Euro game, I might as well get involved. And Laura and I have played it a few times now. Now, admittedly, I haven't played with higher player counts, so maybe I'm missing out there. But we both walked away, and we have slightly different tasting games. And Laura really likes Raiders of the North Sea. So I thought, from that analogy, she would really enjoy it. But she's the same as me. She just finds it extremely meh. It's not that exciting. It's not bad. It works. Mechanically, it's very, very sound. It's just a bit kind of, we'd rather play something else. Yeah,
this is... I love this game so much. Not only do I dream about this, I've played it several times now in a very short period of time. Today I was shopping for other Stefan Feld games. I was like, if this is a good... Even if this is an average Stefan Feld game, what are his other ones like? I'm going to love his other games, surely. So I'm now shopping around to go, actually, what other games by this designer
Yeah, possibly.
am I going to try? Because
Yeah.
chances are I'm probably going to really like them too.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm going to give it another go. As I say, I don't hate it, but I'm not as excited by it as I was expecting to be.
We should get together, Andy, and we should play this. I think maybe my enthusiasm for this game and how good I am at it is help school you in enjoying it.
Okay. And then after that, we can play Barrage, and I will show you how a Eurogame actually works.
Oh, now that's a game in which you make a mistake you're not coming back from.
But yeah, you like Barrage. That's interesting. You like Barrage.
But Barrage has got a lot more I can be a f***ing bellend to everybody else in it.
All right, so
it
you
really
can.
Has.
Okay.
You can actively annoy people in that as well.
But to explain it very quickly, Barrage is a game about building dams and generating electricity. So there's like this map with this set flow of rivers, and you can quite literally divert water to a different lake so that person's dam gets no water.
Ooh.
And therefore doesn't generate any electricity. It's not a cheap thing to do, but somebody can invest a lot of money into their dam, and all of a sudden there's like this little trickle of water coming through because someone else has diverted the water away.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, you've made an interesting point here, actually, Rory, which I'm going to make a board game. What's the word I'm looking for?
I'm still. You had me at. You've made an interesting point, Rory.
I know. Everyone's waiting now for exactly what he said.
Did I?
I'm going to make a board game admission. Stefan Feld is considered one of the greatest board game designers. I don't think I've played a single board game by him.
Well, we should probably play Bonfire together. And
we should play Bonfire.
I'm seriously looking at his games on Board Game Geek, and I know the names, but I've never played them.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think
Bonfire was my first.
I don't think I'd ever played a Stefan Feld game either, to my knowledge. So this was my first. I'd never even heard of him before this.
I mean, I'd heard of him.
Tell I. Well, number one, I've backed Castles of Burgundy remake.
So have I.
Which is one of his. Mm-hmm. I haven't played it.
No.
And I have played Trajan, which is apparently his second best game. And he was bored by it.
Oh.
There you go. I think Mr. Tudor's going to be in my camp. I really do. Although I have to admit, I really do like the idea of the way the portals are built. Because when you build your path and your portals, they kind of go in opposite directions. So one of them you have to build from left to right, but the other one you have to build from right to left. So you can put a bunch of people in front of all of these portals, but they can't get through it because you've lined them all up, but you have to put these portal stones down in reverse order before they can go through. And that's very clever, to be fair.
And it is really good. Like from a tactile point of view, the bridges that you build across the top, you can build those generically. They can be as long as you build them in order, first, second, third, and so on. But they can be any one of those bridges available. The portals have to be specific, and they're specific per player. So when you build a bridge, it doesn't matter whether you build a red one, a blue one, or a yellow one.
Oh yeah, you mean the actual portal itself? Yeah.
But then the portal that goes right to left, and what's really they're all different shapes.
The portal stone. So when you mean the little rune?
Yeah, the little rune. Yeah,
the portal stone. So when you put the rune.
Yeah, when you put your bridge over your altar board, it creates this unique die-cut shape, and only one portal stone will fit into that. So you
and every player board is different.
And every player board is different, and it's a really nice touch. It really looks very cool.
That is very good. I will concede that part of the game works really, really well, and it's very, very clever. That is very good. I cannot deny that. He has thought about that.
And then you've got the actual bonfire, which we haven't talked about. Then the High Council. Then the cards. It's a brilliant game. I don't just it's brilliant. If I said any more, I might have to go and have a lie down or a cold shower.
Well, let's
move on.
You off, then. Let's move on before he wets himself.
So a resounding plus from Rory, a meh from Andy, with some concessions.
And I'm going to have to wait and see.
And you're going to have to wait and see. I think Steve's going to be with me, but we shall see. I may be proved wrong. At the almost opposite end of the spectrum, in the sense that I'm going to be talking about a good game.
I thought you were going to see with complexity. Today I'm going to talk about Snap.
No. It's to be fair, in terms of mechanics, it is probably it's on almost on a completely different spectrum, never mind the end of a spectrum. And I have been playing over the last 6 months or so with some local friends here, The King's Dilemma.
Ooh.
Yes.
I was not aware of that.
No.
I've never heard
Well,
of The
you
King's
must have been
Dilemma.
aware. Have you not? Well, allow me to enlighten you.
Please
The
do.
King's Dilemma has been out for about 18 months, 2 years, I think, give or take. And it is
About that, yeah.
a legacy game. So you have been aware of it because I have posted stuff into our chat. You may not have been aware of what it is.
Yes.
That's probably why.
I'm aware of the game, but I didn't realize. I know you played it. I didn't realize you actually finished the campaign.
Oh, yes, that is why I want to talk about it now. Because I thought talking about it all the way through, but when you're part way through.
There's been a legacy game that's been out for about a year and a half, and you have finished it.
Yes.
That's news in it. So why wasn't that in the news section?
This is not the first campaign game, legacy game I have finished, Mr. Summers. Just because Mr. Tudor and
it's
Mr. Cage
newsworthy
are
that you've
shit
done it
at
in a year
finishing
and a half.
legacy games, I have finished 3. Before I consider continuing talking about King's Dilemma, I'm going to set a small scene, and I'm going to talk about something else. And it is a game called Reigns. Now, Reigns
I have played.
There you go. Right, you see, I knew I could reel you in somehow, Mr. Tudor. Now, Reigns is a very simple single-player game that you can get on pretty much any platform that has a screen these days, because it's really simple. The idea in Reigns is you are the king, or monarch. I think you play as a queen, but you could be a queen. There's no reason why you couldn't be. You are the monarch.
Thank you.
And you are presented with essentially a deck of cards, all face down, and each card has a decision on it. So someone of your court, it could be the jester, it could be the executioner, it could be someone you reign over, basically, and they will come to you with a yes or no, essentially, and they will give you a decision, and you will say literally you'll almost do what you do on Tinder and swipe left or right, yes or no, simple as that. And in doing that, you will affect your kingdom or queendom, or empire, whatever word you wish to use. And to represent your empire, you have 4 characteristics. There is, I think it's religion, wealth, military strength, and this is one I always forget.
Population.
There you go. So you've got four characteristics, and each of these is represented by a bar, basically. And if you get to the very top or the very bottom of one of these bars, you lose. So basically, if you get to the top of, say, the military bar, the army becomes too strong and basically takes over and kicks everybody out. Or if you become, if you lose all of your money, you become destitute and people kick you out because you're useless and you've spent everyone's money.
If you get to the top of the religion bar, the church just takes
you
over?
become like an evangelical state or something like that. So basically, So if they become too powerful, that particular faction takes over, and if they become too weak, everyone kicks you out for being shit. And that's basically what happens. So the idea is obviously you've got to keep a balance by making sensible decisions.
It's a very simple game and also slightly silly, but at the same time, there's a lot of complexity in the cards because it's a video game. You don't know how many cards are, and when you die, you start again with the next king or queen. And then some weird things happen.
Yes,
like
you can find the devil.
I summoned the devil last time I played, and I didn't have a clue what was going on at that point.
And you can marry a dragon. You can find the fountain of youth. All these silly things. You got little objectives as well that you don't know when or where they're going to appear. So it's all a complete mystery, but it's kind of fun when it does, and you can learn the sort of basic, very, very straightforward, very simple combat that happens in a silly animation at the top. But other than that, it's essentially you just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. Your heir takes over as the king, and you get another set of decisions, and blah, 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 blah. And that's essentially how it works. So, with that all in mind, we come back to the King's Dilemma. Because the King's Dilemma is essentially that in a board game, but with a bit more complexity. So instead of 4 bars, there are 5. So you've got wealth, welfare, military strength, knowledge, and I think morale, something like that. So, and the idea is, you start in the middle of this, there's this big sort of board in the middle of the game with a tracker on it, and each of these has a little token on it to indicate where they are. The difference being that if you get to the very top or very bottom of one of these tracks, it doesn't matter. There's an independent tracker that moves whenever each of these tokens move, and it matches the movement of one of those tokens. So if one of the tokens moves up 3, this independent token will move up 3. And if this independent tracker gets to the very top or the very bottom of its track, then the game ends, and the king abdicates for better or for worse. But at the end of So that's one end. The end of that can be the way one game ends, or there's a way. The third way the game can end is actually the king dies. And I'll come back to that in a minute once I've explained the rest of it. So instead of one person making lots of decisions, it's up to a 5-player game, and you play as members of the council, acting on behalf of the king or queen, because you can choose the name of the monarch each game. So, and you are presented with a series of decisions. So again, you draw from a deck of cards, and there's a scenario presented towards the rebels are amassing at our borders, and it looks like they've got red iron weapons. We've got no match for them. Do we try and parley with them, or do we try and take them on? And you're representing great houses, and these houses have essentially qualities or preferences. That the idea is you're supposed to role play it a little bit. So my house was supposed to be great engineers and were quite, well-to-do and liked wealth and all kind of statues and essentially expressions of wealth. So the idea was that throughout the game, I'm supposed to kind of prefer that kind of decision and steer the council in that direction. Obviously, other houses have different preferences, and there's religious preferences, knowledge preferences, all those kind of things. They're not overt, but they're supposed to be, that. And the idea is that everyone sort of puts forward their argument, discusses it, and you have a certain amount of power represented by little tokens that you can put onto, you will vote in favour of or against the motion. And the card will tell you which of these not preferences, attributes, will be affected by the decision. So, for example, we will attack. Let's attack. The vault in a neighbouring town. So obviously that will affect potentially military strength and wealth. It'll tell you that it'll affect it negatively or positively, but it won't tell you by how much when you're making the decision until obviously you turn it over. So then everyone sort of puts their little vote in. There's a little sort of voting system that happens, and if somebody puts in a little bit more than somebody else, then there's a kind of a fist that represents kind of basically the leader, and they're the person who then leads the next vote, and so on and so forth. They get to turn over the card. And then in turning over the card, that will then affect the tracks for fair means or foul. And it may also open an envelope, which will contain more cards, which may advance a story. It may even open a new story, because I think there are 6 story threads within the game. They don't interact much themselves, but one story can open another story. So as you go through the game, it basically unlocks more stuff. Until eventually you've got to the end of all 6, and obviously the campaign ends. So you go through the game, you keep doing this, and then you can unlock things like stickers, which are basically bills, and you literally sign your name on these bills, and that can affect how much power and how much money and stuff you'll get at the start of the next game. Some are positive, some are negative. And there are also continued effects which are based on the outcomes of some of the story cards. So there's a lot going on. I mean, the actual mechanics of the game are very simple. Read card, make decision, deal with consequences. It's really that simple. But it's really good fun and very clever and extremely well put together. Now, obviously, I can't tell you too much about what happens in the game in terms of storyline, because it may influence anyone who's listening. But that's basically the idea. But you have, so each time everyone makes a decision, these cards get tucked in so you can sort of see what decisions you've made. And then you get towards the end of kind of the game track, as it were, when these cards get in. And I think once you've made sort of 6 decisions, once you get to sort of the 7th and onwards, there's like a little skull tracker thing. And some of the cards you turn over might have a skull on them. So if you're in that part of the game and that part of the track during your game and you turn over one of these cards, the king dies. So basically it's a way to end the game if everyone's making, a stable... If the economy is stable, for example, and the kingdom is doing well, the game will end eventually. So you're not going to be there all night. Games last roughly somewhere between half an hour and about 2 hours for each individual playthrough.
That's quite short.
So what was that? So how long?
Between half an hour and 2 hours, depending. It depends on what happens. Because if you bomb the economy, for example, your game's going to be over very, very quickly. Because if something changes upwards or downwards, it gains momentum in that direction. So if it continues in that direction, it goes faster and faster and faster. So it can sometimes only take 2 decisions in one direction to actually get to the top of a track. Now that in itself probably won't end the game, but it can pull the the kind of the kingdom tracker with it quite significantly, and that can end the game quite quickly. So your first game is probably going to last somewhere between half an hour and an hour because it's a learning game and it will end quickly. I think it's designed to. But other games can last a little longer because there's more discussion, and it obviously depends on what people talk about and how passionately people feel about certain issues, like whether we should build a statue of me in the town square, for example, things like that. Or whether we should put like a magical compass in the council room or put it in some kind of vault where it belongs. Stuff like that. And there's all kinds of weird and wonderful effects. There's a huge kingdom and there's a map of the land and all the sort of neighbouring provinces and stuff that it tells you. They've had a lot of fun making up words and names and things, I can tell you that, because some of them are barely pronounceable. But it is all set in a fantasy world, so it's very kind of think Game of Thrones kind of era, kind of level of technology and level of magic and stuff. So magic is possible, although you don't cast spells. Weird shit can happen. That kind of environment is what you're working in. So yeah, it all flows together very, very well. And we really enjoyed it. And of course, you can play through it more than once because each decision is obviously can shape the rest of the way the game goes.
So I'm right in thinking that there's a sequel coming to this. There is the Queen's Dilemma coming soon as well.
There is, and the person who brought this to us in Bewdley, Andrew, is going to be buying that, so we will be playing it whenever that comes out. So watch this. I don't think it's out for a little while, but
I don't remember the Kickstarter even launching for that. I remember seeing adverts for it, but not. Yeah, we were talking about Kickstarter adverts earlier. I'm pretty sure I've seen adverts for that, but not remember it's coming out.
But yes, no, we enjoyed it because I mean we've just sort of recycled it because it is literally a one playthrough thing. You cannot play through it. It's not a resettable campaign. It is a full legacy game. Stuff gets destroyed and signed and burned and put into boxes. But there's shitloads of envelopes that we haven't used, so the game can branch in so many different ways, much like Tainted Grail. So it's very, very good. And during the game, you end up with attributes. So when you end the game, you score not points, but you gain prestige and crave. And prestige is white, crave is black. But you basically you tick these little boxes basically, and they affect who can go first and who gets what scoring. What's the word? Basically, at the end of each game, everyone will score in a very different way. So you'll get a card that tells you where the tokens on the trackers must be in order for you to score certain numbers of points. So it's in your interest to kind of steer the council to try and get those tokens in the right place. They're never like precise. It's usually if the tokens are going to be like the top half or the bottom half of the board, you'll get X numbers of points, for example. If 3 of them are, then you'll get Y numbers of points, things like that. So that can steer your decision too, which is kind of fun because then you get into the arguments. Hang on a minute, two rounds ago you were all for this kind of thing, and now you've changed your mind. Why is that then? No reason. It's all very, very good fun, and I don't think any should be taken too seriously. Thankfully, none of us did. But I think the one issue we had as people is we're all quite non-religious, scientific sort of minded types of the people. So whenever all the religious cards came out, we didn't give two shits. So what you do need is a set of people who can or will either role play and stick to one role, or have a bunch of different people in the room with different mindsets, so you get a good discussion.
That to me would suggest that you want to play with this with the same group of people.
I would say so. Oh yeah. If you mean each time, really you mean each time, as in people dipping in and out. Ideally, yes, because you score and your ongoing score is tracked, and it's associated with your house. If you brought somebody new in, they'd be at a massive disadvantage.
Okay.
So unless they played the same
how many
house.
Games are there in the box, do you think? I know it's very variable because it's branches, but so how many have you played?
I think we worked out it was about 18.
18, okay, 18 games.
That seems about right for a legacy game. Charterstone was about that. Pandemic Legacy is about that.
That sounds very good. I mean, if you say if we average it out as an hour per game, that's 18 hours of gaming per person.
Oh yeah.
I'm just looking from everything you said. This game sounds really interesting.
Oh, it is. It's extremely.
I'm actually tempted to maybe have a bash at this actually. But 50 rips.
Yeah.
Well, that's not bad. That's not bad.
standard board gaming price these days, isn't it? 50
Yeah.
quid.
There's a lot in
And
the
if I know I'm
box.
going to get, it's just making sure that I'm going to have people that I'm going to be able to play 18 games of this with.
Yes, very much so. Yeah,
It's making sure it's that, which is the problem with legacy games. It's a problem.
and you definitely want an odd number of players. So ideally, you'll want 5. Because,
Oh, really?
well, I would say that just from experience, because with an odd number of players, you're not going to get a tie. And you want
and
that.
what's wrong with having only 3 players then?
You could probably-
do you feel like you need more than 3?
I think 3 would be fine, but you'd get more discussion with 5, that's all. I think 5 would be the sweet spot. That's how many we played it with. So we had the full player count. But I think 3 would be fine. I mean, you'd be fine with 4, to be fair, but I think this kind of game would be better with an odd number because you would never get a tie. So we would force people
Well, it's
to make
like
decisions.
we talked to before, like Tortuga is better with an odd number.
Definitely, yeah.
Who Goes There is better with an odd number. It works, but you really want that odd number for
I think
that really
the
interesting
same
moments.
reason, exactly, yeah.
Cool.
It would be fine with 4, obviously, but you might get more deadlocks with an odd number of players. Sorry, with an even number of players.
Fair enough. Okay, that does sound good. I do like the sound of that game.
It was
Thank you,
good.
Andy.
The only issue I have with it was I found the very, 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 very end of the game slightly disappointing.
Oh, right. Okay, so it's a really good game, but the ending's shit. Thanks.
No, it's not. I can't tell you how it works because it would ruin it. But the very last part, basically the very final score bit at the end of the campaign, is actually really clever and actually works really, really well. But it's literally the final tally. Alora and I thought was a bit odd, the way it worked. It's not bad. It's just a bit unexpected.
Okay. I'm now intrigued about this, but I don't think I'm going to find 3 to 5 players to play this with. As we've found out, my track record of campaign and AC games is not good at all. And just as a point of reference, The Queen's Dilemma launches on Kickstarter on the 25th of October.
There you go, then.
So
that just happens to be payday.
Yeah. So that's about 2 weeks after this podcast will air.
He says optimistically.
Giving himself homework.
But I definitely recommend King's Dilemma. We all really enjoyed it. It's a very good game. As I say, because each individual game only lasts, say, on average an hour, it won't consume your whole evening. I mean, there were some nights where we played 2 or 3 games in a go. One night. So we start at 7, half 7, and we finished at 10, half 10. And, we squeezed 2 or 3 games in most nights. And that was over the course of 6 months because we weren't playing every week for whatever reason. But if you were really on it, and you could spend a day playing it, you could spend like 6 or 7 games in a day if you really, really wanted to.
And you think it's interesting and engaging enough to want to play it over and over and over again for a day?
Oh, very much so. I would love to play with a different group. In fact, I have played with a different group of people, which is where I learned about it. Was the Worcester Gaming lot, actually, Steve, so Dan and James and that lot. And it was a very different experience because they were quite role-playing on it, and they did stick to their guns, and there was a lot more arguments. So it's a lot less laid back with that lot, although we didn't finish that, or at least I didn't finish that campaign. But I did enjoy it, so yeah, it's good. It's definitely worth playing. But I wouldn't want to dip in and out of it. It's like if you're in it, you'd want to be in it because you'd actually want to be, right, God damn it, I want my point across. And there's also like a lifelong goal as part of the house. There's like this kind of, it's called, I can't remember, it could be maybe a plot line or a storyline goal. It's a very long-term thing. And like in Reigns, with the little sort of tick boxes that you might get or not, you don't know really when it's going to come out. If it even comes out. Mine didn't come out, or rather, it did come out, but everyone voted against it, so I couldn't get it. I was really, really annoyed. But a couple of people's did, so they were quite happy about that. So you can kind of work towards it. And again, it's another thing that would influence your voting in a particular game. So there's lots of things in it. It's extremely clever. The world they've created is very good, and there's some seriously good moral dilemmas in it, actually. Like literal, do we murder people to get X benefit, or do we actually let them go and suffer the consequences? Literally things like that. So if you are into sort of genuine moral decisions in, I would say, a real world, but with actual potentially game changing consequences, this is the game for you, because it will literally change the game.
Right then. Well, with that dilemma, it brings our podcast to an end. That was terrible.
That's a stretch.
That was awful.
It's ruined it all there.
Oh, well. Ended a low way.
Oh, he's just going to edit it out now, isn't he?
No, he can't, because if we refer back to the thing he's just done, like the really shit segue he's just done.
While we're doing the exit, we'll just talk about it.
We can't do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for listening. We have been Polyhedra and Collider. Please give us a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. You can find us all over the internet, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our Instagram's actually on fire because we're always posting some actual pictures of actual games.
Loads of pictures on Instagram at the moment. And do you know what? There's even a couple of reviews on our website these days as well. There's someone has been writing reviews again.
Yeah, it's not me.
I keep meaning to, but no. At least somebody is.
Look for Polyhedra and Collider in Google. We're also on the Board Game Geek Guild 2726. We didn't ask for any questions this week, and we didn't have any time. But yes, send us more questions. We have emptied the mailbag. We've got nothing left, so we are looking for more questions. And until next time, happy gaming.
Ta-ra.
Bye-bye. I got a quick question though, Steve.
Go on.
Right, because you led into that with like a discussion point. So we've done news. Does that mean we now need discussion theme tune music?
No.
No, I was just trying to give you more work to do. Just trying to give you more work.
A sort of pondering noise.
I've automatically dismissed your idea, Rory.